Our next speaker is Professor Moshe Machover. Moshe spoke at our meeting last night, from last time from the floor. Today he's going to speak to us as a speaker. Moshe is an Israeli mathematician, philosopher, and socialist activist. And Moshe, we welcome you here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I would like to go beyond the details and to look at beyond the individual case on both sides and to explain the background, because I think it's very important to understand it. And I hope not to go on for too long. There is, on the one side, a wide-ranging campaign of calumnies, which is active here, in the United States, in Europe, and beyond. The most visible forces on the offensive against us are the pro-Israel lobby and Israel advocacy organizations. But they are by no means the main or the most powerful forces on the offensive. And it's very important to understand this, that we don't just have to deal with these Israel advocacy groups. They, in fact, are the useful and willing allies in this country of the British establishment, the UK state, and in other places, in other states, in Europe and elsewhere. These advocacy, Israel advocacy and Zionist lobby groups are given so much leverage because of the importance of Israel as a prime strategic asset of United States hegemony regionally in the Middle East and even beyond. In this situation, for example, the British state is doing its job as a camp follower, a subaltern of the United States. We all know about the so-called special relationship between Britain and the United States. But this is not perhaps as special as the relationship between Israel and the United States. So because of this importance of Israel in the structure of American hegemony, it must be ring-fenced. It must be defended against all opposition. All public opposition to the misdeeds of Israel must be stifled and silenced. And this is on the offensive side. On our side, so to speak, David Miller is only the current target of this vicious campaign. I think this has been pointed out more than once. He has to be defended not only for his own sake, but because he's unjustly attacked, but because this is part of a general fight to defend truth against lies and justice against oppression. The side of those attacking us is the side of oppression. Our side is the side of liberation. And it goes far beyond David Miller. It goes far beyond the University of Bristol, by the way, in which I used to lecture many years ago in the Department of Mathematics. It goes far beyond the British academic scene. It is, in fact, a question of the whole of civil society, the whole of public opinion in this country, in other countries, everywhere. They want to stifle any opposition to Israel's misdeed. What actually brought about, why did it explode, as it were, so much in recent years? this is important because we have to understand the motives behind it. What brought it on, because this is also a clue to why it is going on now and whether it will continue, how far it will go. Well, there has been a shift in gradually over the years in public opinion perception of the situation in Israel-Palestine. It is to a great extent epitomized by the growing BDS movement. Its success, not so much in achieving its economic aims, but in raising consciousness. I think people don't perhaps sufficiently appreciate how successful this BDS campaign has been in terms of raising public consciousness to the situation in the Middle East. In the United States specifically, this has become quite visible, especially during the Obama years. And significantly, there has been a shift and a greater recognition and understanding among the Jewish population in the United States, especially among younger Jews. And this has alarmed the forces of repression. In this country, recall the popularity of Palestinian solidarity resolutions in the Labour Party conference at the time of Corbyn, the 2017 conference especially. It was very remarkable. And in all his appearances, it was very obvious that among the general public, the politically conscious public, especially among younger people, there has been a huge growth in Palestinian solidarity. This, of course, alarmed the forces that I outlined at the beginning of my talk. And it went into action. And this has escalated its campaign of lies and vituperation. But at the present, as the Israeli colonial settler state escalates its war criminal annexationism and expansionism, more people are going to turn against it. And therefore, we must expect that the campaign of calumnies will also escalate. David Miller is only as I said previously, is only the current target. It will go beyond. We have to be prepared, and we must therefore redouble our counterattack. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moshe. It's great to hear from you again. Over to you, Moshe.
I finally managed to unmute myself. Thank you. Yes, I would like briefly to address what Jonathan Cook pointed out. Jonathan, whose reports and blogs from the Unholy Land are a wonderful, wonderful resource. And Rada Karmi, an old friend. Yes, there is a question of cognitive dissonance, and there is a question, as Rada Karmi pointed out, of a lot. I mean, Zionist Jews are such because they have internalized the idea that Zionism is part of their Jewish identity. It is a sort of surrogate religion. I don't think there's any way to deal with it except by confrontation with reality. What happens? We shouldn't lose hope, because there are now quite a number of people here, remarkably in the United States, among the Jewish community and in Israel itself, who are changing, who are getting a release from this tension of cognitive dissonance. Let me mention just two very famous cases, but I mean, they are just emblematic of many. I mean, there is the case of Peter Beinart, a prominent Zionist writer in the past, who is, well, I mean, he would still define himself as a Zionist, but with such Zionists, I think, you know, we can leave. I mean, if all Zionists were like him, you know, it wouldn't be so bad. Who has actually changed and changed and made a public declaration of the change that he has undergone because of his confrontation with reality. Reality is, after all, the best cure for cognitive dissonance. And there is the question of Avraham Burg. There is an example of Avraham Burg, who used to be the speaker of the Knesset, who used to be the head of one of the most important world Zionist organizations, the Jewish Agency. He has moved. He has moved. Again, you know, he will still say that the establishment of Israel was a just thing, but I mean, with his brand of Zionism, it wouldn't be so bad. And people are, these are just two prominent cases, but there are lots of the who are not so well known. So I think that rather than try to, as it were, psychoanalyze them and try to, as it were, cure them with various psychological means, I think we should simply concentrate on making the reality better known. And this is what Jonathan Cook excels in. So, I mean, the problem Jonathan raised is, in fact, best cured by what he's actually doing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moshe.